Barcelona are moving on in Europa League. I went on record this week and said that between El Clasico or this one, I take the 3 points in El Clasico, but I'm still going to celebrate Barcelona moving on in the Europa League against an emboldened Galatasaray side at home in a difficult atmosphere to play today. There were fireworks at the hotel all night, the yellows piled up throughout the match, and the referee could have had a better day. But however it came, Barcelona were able to survive largely with their team intact preparing for the weekend. So let's do it. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-1 victory over Galatasaray in the Europa League. 1 is Pedri again. I'm not going to look at who else the man of the match might have been. For me, it was Pedri. He was one of the reasons Barcelona came back in this game. Obviously, he got the goal, but he was just superb. Offensively, defensively, when Busquets and De Jong didn't have their best, especially the first half. I think they turned it on a bit in the second, but Busquets and De Jong were almost nowhere to be found. All the issues about their spacing and how those two work in tandem, they all came popping up again today in the first 45 minutes. Busquets, his long passing in particular, wasn't very accurate. He was having some issues, just wavering on another European night. And as we said, De Jong, until he was pushed farther forward in the second half, which is something Xavi has done between a first half and a second half this season with the positioning of De Jong. But until De Jong was pushed farther forward, so much of it came on Pedri. And Pedri, even in the last 30 or so minutes closing out this game, was absolutely superb. You know how I love my Opta stats, and the one for today is that he's the first teenager to score for Barcelona in the UEFA Cup or the Europa League. Of course, Barcelona haven't been in the competition since 2003, but he is the first teenager to score since Ivan de la Peña versus Bayern Munich in April of 1996, who is about a half a year older than Pedri, and that also makes him the youngest since Roger versus Sevilla in December of 1995. And let's get you some of those stats for Pedri. 100 total touches, 87% passing accuracy, 3 successful dribbles, of course the goal, 2 shots on target, he had a bunch off target as well, 9 ground duels won, 5 tackles, and 2 of 2 on his long balls. And again, the stats don't really paint the whole picture of what Pedri was. He was calm, he was confident, he was everywhere he needed to be for Barca today. That's why my number 1 headline here is Pedri again. He was the best player in this match, and Barcelona won by a Pedri amount. I want to thank OneFootball for sponsoring this video. OneFootball is the app I use to keep myself up to date on all things FC Barcelona, everything I need to know, as well as check on every other team that Alemany could be scouting right now for a big summer transfer window. With a custom-tailored homepage, stay up to date with breaking news, live scores, and even transfer news. While on the go, you can check with matches in live time and watch videos afterwards. Use the link in the description for a free download of OneFootball on Android or iOS to put all of your football in one place. And you'll help out a tiny Barca channel too. Thanks to OneFootball again for sponsoring this video. Now back to the Barca business. 2 is what to worry about. As much as the result is something that Culés can celebrate, there were some issues that I think are going to continue to pop up as the season goes along, and 2 major things that we need to talk about. Adama Traoré was not good in this match. He had to come off at halftime because it was either being too selfish or not combining with his teammates well and just being a one-trick pony. And Galatasaray, for all their issues on the defensive side of the ball this season, they seem to have completely figured out Adama Traoré. It was also another unfortunate reminder that is becoming quite a theme that Adama and Dest do not really work well together. Alves and Adama work well together, Dembélé and Dest work well together, and Dembélé and Alves, we haven't seen actually that much of it, but it certainly can have some success if Dembélé is on his day, and Alves has been pretty solid with the exception of just one match this season. But Adama Dest is where we worry about. But looking forward, we might not have to worry about the combination of Adama and Dest because we're going to have to worry about the injury issue with Dest moving forward. When this is coming out, I'm not sure what happened with Dest, but we do know that he came off with what looked like a pretty nasty hamstring pull. And it comes at a really bad time for Dest too. It's been arguably his best string of games since arriving, and even though he wasn't locked into every start and Alves has been rotating with him, he's been good every time Xavi's needed him for weeks now. And fortunately for Xavi, by starting Eric Garcia and Piqué, that meant Ronald Araujo could come off the bench in that right back spot that Xavi has already used him at a number of times this season, and he was able to fortify that back line as they attempted to close out this match with that narrow lead. It should be noted too, interestingly enough, that when Araujo came on, Babel was switched to his side and Atakoglu was matched up with Alba, at least until Babel exited, though it should be noted that the best move from Atakoglu in the second half came against Araujo, but nevertheless, Araujo was just important defensively, keeping everything tight, and Lenglet also wasn't too bad coming on either. Headline 3 is first goal response, and the reason why that what to worry about segment wasn't longer is because Barcelona as a unit, as a team, all 11 guys seem to keep competing and getting up to the occasion. And the reason the word compete has been on my mind, there's a recent piece by Graham Hunter where he talks about that being the major difference between the previous few managers and Xavi. This team competes, whether they're up, whether they're down, regardless of the score, they go out and they fight. Supercopa against Real Madrid, even in losses. Before this whole thing was working, Xavi is getting this team to compete. And that's another reason why it always felt like Barcelona had a shot in this game. It never felt like something was inevitable that Barcelona were going to get kicked out of another European night. While the Pedri goal got the team to halftime, resetting the tie at even, then because of the depth that Xavi has at his disposal, Ousmane Dembélé for Adama Traoré, which was kind of a no-brainer, that ignited the early second half goal, putting more pressure on that Galatasaray back line. And through the combined efforts of Pedri, De Jong, and Aubameyang, who just can't stop scoring, Barcelona took the 2-1 lead. And it just felt like the script, the narrative, that Barcelona were that much better than Galatasaray. Even though it was a tough place to play, Jordi Alba getting himself in some trouble with the fans late on in the match, and we'll say the fans getting themselves in trouble with Alba too. So for that volatile atmosphere, for everything that was going on, Barcelona just stayed the course with a better team and got out of Turkey with a 2-1 victory to move on in the competition. 4 is set pieces happen, and while Barcelona are moving on and they did win 2-1, they were down 1-0 earlier in the game. I already said about what to worry about because I'm not actually going to worry about the set piece goal that was conceded by Barcelona here. Ferran Torres, he was just beaten by Marcao 1v1. That's all that happened at the back post. The only question I have isn't about Ferran Torres yet. He could have been better. Actually, he should have been better. That really goes against him. But I'm not sure why Marcao was the one who was being marked by Ferran Torres. That assignment was the only thing that really confused me. You worry about Gomes on the corners, you consider Nelson and Ryan Babel, but the second guy you worry about is Marcao. So I'm not sure how that 1v1 depth chart, Ferran Torres got that assignment. And in the first half, we saw that not having Ronald Araujo on for set pieces does matter. He takes either the first or second option, while Eric Garcia gets the fourth or fifth option because of some of his issues in the air. In the long term, Araujo is going to be starting every important match. He'll start every match moving forward. But we saw in that first one against Galatasaray why Xavi had to go with Garcia instead of Araujo. Which leads us to headline number 5. Because headline number 5 is Eric Garcia give or take. Individually, it's difficult, and this is a good thing, because the team is playing such as a cohesive unit, it's difficult to try to pluck out good or bad performances from individual players. But in the case of Eric Garcia, I felt like he had to be highlighted here, because that was the big decision. Yeah, there was the Gabi getting rotated for Frankie de Jong and Pedri and Busquets, but how often is it going to be that Frankie de Jong is not going to start one of every other match? And he was just rested over the weekend against Osasuna, so you expected that he would be back for this one. But in the case of Eric Garcia, clearly Galatasaray, if they were going to get a goal, it was going to come on the counterattack. And that's where Barcelona felt a bit weak. Galatasaray were attacking that space in between Eric Garcia and Jordi Alba. They kept trying and trying and trying. PK having to figure out whether he wanted to shade to the right or shade to the left. And that put the defense, that being Barcelona's, on the back foot. And Galatasaray kind of did deserve to be up 1-0 in this game, though if not for that Frankie de Jong miss early on, it would have been Barca to take the early lead. But nevertheless, putting in the back of the net was Galatasaray to go up 1-0. And while Eric Garcia wasn't at fault, I'd already talked about that corner, the fact that Barcelona were susceptible to the counterattack does have to do with him instead of Araujo. But Xavi started Eric Garcia because if Galatasaray were going to sit back, they were going to leave that space for Eric Garcia to dribble into or pass into wide open. And he does that at a much, much better rate than Araujo does at this point in their careers. Garcia helped open the space between the Galatasaray midfield and the back line. And even if one of his forays forward got him a yellow, it's that pressure, the sustained pressure, that competing that we keep talking about with Xavi, where even if a move doesn't come off, even if Frankie de Jong misses that one early on, Barcelona are going to continue to weather and wear their opponent down. And Eric Garcia being able to put pressure on that midfield and back line of Galatasaray in a way that Araujo doesn't is why he started this match. Now against Real Madrid in El Clasico, yeah, I don't want to see Eric Garcia stuck on an island against a Real Madrid counterattack. But against Galatasaray, who are not going to be able to dig in and counterattack with the same effect that Real Madrid will, you do go with Eric Garcia in this instance. Because in theory, Galatasaray will also defend deeper than what is a Real Madrid mid-block. because Madrid doesn't have to get into a deep low block. They have the ability and enough talent in their midfield where they only have to set up in a medium block against Barcelona to cause some trouble. So I know you might be a bit confused whether or not it's a compliment or an insult to Eric Garcia because of what I think he could do against Real Madrid as opposed to what he did today against Galatasaray. But I must say it was a big positive. They had that goal-saving tackle in the first half as well. And Eric Garcia was an important part of this 2-1 result today. Not as much as Pedri, but as much as so many of the other players that I could have mentioned in this match review. So it is unfortunate that Barca don't have a lot of time to enjoy this one. Real Madrid have been off since Monday, and now both teams are looking ahead to El Clasico on Sunday. Is this a team that's ready for El Clasico? Well, maybe they are, because I think even though there's only a few days in between the competitions, Europa League and knockout football, it's just different than El Clasico. And you bet we're going to talk about that more on the podcast tomorrow, the differences between these two games, because 90 minutes against Madrid is very different from 90 minutes against Galatasaray. But Barca do head into the game on a high note, so I think that's a good place to leave it, that Barcelona go into El Clasico on an upswing, on a positive swing. Little announcement on the channel, if you're with me to the end of this video, not many of you stay this long, but at 10,000 subscribers, because we're pretty close, I am going to have a special surprise for you. I've been teasing what it is, but you all know that I did get a puppy soon. So at 10,000, there it is. There's a surprise that she will make her debut on the channel just for a brief moment here. It's hard to get her attention, but there's a surprise at 10,000. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the content that's coming out in a very busy few days here at the Barcelona podcast. And until next time, as always, Forza Barça.